Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for an America's Promise Alliance GradNation webinar. We really appreciate your patience. We are excited to be joined on this webinar by 4 young people, and so we've just been working with them to make sure that the technology is working. So thanks for your patience. Again, we are excited to welcome you to the GradNation Campaign's webinar, Achieving a 90% Graduation Rate, a Path Back to High School for Boston Youth. Before we begin, we want to note a few ground rules. Due to the volume of participants, everyone has been muted. We do welcome participation throughout the webinar, and there will be 2 dedicated question and answer sessions. At any time during this presentation, please use the questions panel to write and submit your questions. We will take as many questions as possible. We want to invite you all to join the conversation on Twitter today by using the hashtag GradNation during and after the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and a link will be shared in the coming days on the GradNation website. Finally, we want to encourage all participants to take a 2 to 3 minute survey immediately following today's webinar. This survey information will help us better understand who you are, whether this webinar was valuable to you and your work, and what topics you'd like to see covered during future GradNation learning sessions. My name is Monica Kinchlow, and I'm a Senior Director here at America's Promise. We are going to go ahead and get started. The recording will begin now. Okay, so again, thanks for joining us. In today's webinar, we are focused on the Youth Reengagement Action Platform under the GradNation campaign. Today's webinar will start with a moderated youth panel discussion that we were just prepping for, and we will then be joined by 4 young people from one school in the Boston Public School system. All these young people have been engaged through the Boston Reengagement Center. After the youth panel, the audience will have the opportunity to ask questions, so don't forget to submit your questions via the chat function. With this youth perspective in mind, we will then turn to what youth reengagement is and how communities and states are responding across the country. We will be joined by Andy Moore from the National League of Cities, who will share an overview of why reengagement systems are important for addressing the barriers that youth face in returning to education. Following that, we will hear from Manny Allen, Kathy Hamilton, and Annika Van Eaton from the Boston Reengagement Center, who will dive deeper into the specific work and strategies they are doing to bring young people back to school. Finally, we'll close out with another set of a Q&A period for our speakers from National League of Cities and the Boston Reengagement Center. As yet another reminder, there are 2 separate Q&A periods, so please be sure to submit your questions during the presentation, and we'll get to all your questions during the Q&A period. America's Promise Alliance has led the GradNation campaign for nearly 10 years. In that time, we have seen the graduation rate climb from the 70s to a 2016 rate of 84%. The GradNation Action Platform articulates the evidence-based best practice that contributes to an increase in graduation rate. Based on hundreds of interviews with practitioners and youth, in addition to research and evidence-based practice, reengagement emerged as a required component of any effort to improve educational outcomes for youth. The high school experience should work for all young people, even if they leave school. You can find more detail about each platform area, including practices, places, and partners involved in this work, on our website. Young people leave school for various reasons, and there is no one-size-fits-all approach to bringing them back to school. Bringing them back demands adults in the system to come together to meet youth where they are, including understanding the reasons they left school in the first place. They may have left to care for a sick parent, to care for children or siblings, or to earn income for their families. We're starting off with a youth panel today because at America's Promise, we strongly believe that the education system should reflect the voice and needs of the youth we serve. We are very happy now to turn to 4 individuals who came to the Boston Reengagement Center after leaving high school. I want to thank these youth in advance for sharing their experience with school, and I'm confident they will bring the research presented here to life based on their lived experiences. And for those of you listening in, I encourage you to consider whether the systems in which you are involved know the perspective of youth and what you might do to ensure youth voice informs your work, particularly those who leave school. I'm going to turn it over now to Nivesha Noble, a manager on the Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships team here at America's Promise, who will moderate the panel. As a reminder, submit your questions for the youth through the questions function, and we'll pose them during the Q&A after the panel. So we're just going to take one moment to bring our cameras online. So Jelani, if you can help us to make sure that the students have their pictures, or sorry, not pictures, video on the screen.
There we
All right,
go.
we've got one screen, good. Should we expect another screen, Jelani?
Yep, 1 second.
Okay.
Hi everyone. I don't know what to say. There's already people watching us. I didn't know. This is scary.
Louis and Javon, you're live, so let's just hold until Nivesha joins in with you.
All right.
I'm gonna mute this.
Okay, great. I'm going to turn it over to Nivesha, who's going to moderate the panel.
Thank you, Monica. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nivesha Noble, and I will moderate today's youth panel. I am pleased to be joined by 4 amazing youth who you see on the screen. We will be joined by Javon, Cheyenne, Amanda, and Louis. And you can see them on the screen, so you guys can wave to the audience. Okay, so now we can get started with diving right into the questions. And so the first question that we want to start off with is, what are the factors that influenced your decision to leave school? Could your school have helped you with any of those factors to keep you enrolled? And if so, what could they have done?
I guess I'll start. The thing that caused me to leave from school was mostly because of family issues, such as my mom being diagnosed with breast cancer and my grandma passing away. That was like really took a toll on my academic career. It kind of set it back like a lot. So my principal at the time suggested that I come here to find an alternative route, and then I spoke with a man named Mr. Hamilton, and he got me into the school I go to now, which is
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to answer that question? It's open to each and every one of you.
Yeah. Well, I left school because of family problems too, and I had gotten pregnant at the age of 16 years old. I was going through a lot, like relationship-wise, where I was abandoned, so I had to do it by myself for a good couple months. So then I was talking to one of my old teachers, Mr. Santos, and he referred me here, and that's when I came here. They were very supportive, and they helped me find BADA. So now I'm good.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We definitely appreciate it. Anyone else want to add to that question?
Yeah, I got you. I don't know. I'm not really a school person, and I came from a pretty abusive household, so it made it a lot harder to sit there and go out in public and go to school. So it was more or less like being absent and not getting the education that I should have gotten. Yeah.
I agree with I mean not agree, but my experience is like similar to Cheyenne. The factors that drove me out of school were basically just home issues that I had, and I just really couldn't finish school because with all the stuff that was going on at home, and I just didn't have any mental help, which is something that I'm probably going to talk about more later. But yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for those responses. We definitely appreciate those. And just thank you for also just being brave and being super honest about the reasons why you left school. So that brings us to the second question. So most of you guys said that high school wasn't able to do certain things. The high school that you came from wasn't able to do certain things. So how has the Boston Reengagement Center helped you on your journey to completing your high school diploma? Like, what are some of the exact examples of resources and opportunities that that the center provided to you?
Like I mentioned earlier, one of the people who used to be here, Mr. Hamilton, out for a couple weeks and looked at different like alternative options that I could do to make up those credits that I missed and put myself on the right track in order to do it on time and get my life in order, regardless of like everything else that set me back.
I say one of the resources that I could say that they provided which is really good is that when you come here they ask you about the issues that you had in the school that you previously were in so that they can find a school that'll be best fit for you. Like I know that being in big classrooms was not helpful for me. So they helped me find BADA, Boston Adult Technical Academy, a school where I could like be in smaller classrooms. So they try to accommodate you depending on what your needs are.
Does anyone else want to answer that question on what are some of the examples of resources and opportunities that the Youth Reengagement Center provided to you to help you address your needs?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I feel like when I came to the Reengagement Center, I kind of had like the attitude where it was like, okay, well, this is my last chance. Like this is the last resort. Like if I don't get the help that I need help here, I'm just gonna drop out of high school. But the Reengagement Center kind of told me, was like, this is not the last time. Like we can help you. Like we can get through this. You're gonna get your diploma and etc. So they kind of just gave me that confidence. Like don't give up yet. Like you still have time to finish.
When I came here, it was kind of hard for me since I just had a newborn and everything, and I was doing it by myself. But when I came here, they were very supportive. I didn't think I was gonna finish high school at all. I just had it in my mind like I was just done. But when I came here, they encouraged me to sign back into school and everything.
Okay, thank you so much for those responses. So I noticed that in each and every one of you guys' responses, you said that they were able to meet the needs that you guys had. And it seems like relationships was a huge thing for them to figure out what exactly it was that you needed. Can you talk more about the relationships that you developed while you were at the center and how that helped you to figure out what school was best for you and things like that?
When it comes to developing relationships with people, like for me specifically, like even at my other schools, like it was really hard because I had this like thing where I wouldn't really trust that many people, and those who I did trust, like if they broke that trust, they would just really.
Thanks.
So when I came to the Reengagement Center, when I met Mr. Hamilton.
Javon, I'm really sorry. We want to be able to hear you properly. Is there any way you can maybe just put your elbows down? I'm not sure why the sound is off when you're speaking.
Is it? All right, can you hear me now?
That's so much better. Thank you.
Great. So I was saying that at other schools that I've been to, it was really hard for me to develop relationships with people like at the top because it was like, they had to focus on their job and they weren't always able to give students and like other people like the attention that they required. So when I came to the Reengagement Center, Mr. Hamilton sat down with me and was like, listen, I'm here to try to tell you what to do or whatever. Like, all this is up to you. Like, if you want to do this, then let me know. And then we'll move from there. And then I told him, like, I want to do this. I want to get my diploma and have a productive life. So then we went from there and we built that relationship to where I could call him and ask him for assistance or help or whatever to support me.
I think what I can add on to that is, well, when you first come here, I feel when you first come to the Reengagement Center, after being a student who has dropped out of school, you're kind of just doubting yourself. when you're thinking about returning back to school, because for me, I know that I was doubting myself. And one of the things that they do good here, they they also went through the re-engagement section, and now they're working here. It's really helpful because it just helps us get inspired and want to finish school and know that it's not too late.
Are you done? I'm sorry.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. What was the question again? Is there someone that can repeat that?
Yes, I can repeat that. So just basically talking about the relationships that you formed with some of the staff at the Boston Reengagement Center, just talking a little bit about how you created those relationships and how that has helped you in your progress.
Yeah, I feel like one of the people at the Reengagement Center would have to be Jelani, honestly, just because he's like, not saying like he's the only nice person that I met here. It's just he seen that I was struggling. Like he seen like I wasn't, like all for going back to school. I mean, at the end of the day, I knew I needed to go to school, but like he kind of just reassured me, like, like do what you gotta do. Like this is your life. Get your diploma, stuff like that.
Are you done? I'm sorry. One person here that really helped me was Mr. Santos, like, because I have a very hard trust in people and like telling them my personal life. But when I came in here, he made me feel comfortable and everything. Same like with Cheyenne.
Right. It's like they get what you're going through. Like I feel like they went through this sometime in their life.
Like usually other like teachers in my like, because I went to Madison and they weren't really helpful. They will always shoot you down and everything, so they didn't understand certain situations. But when I came here, they really understood me and they encouraged me to do so much better with my life. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much for those responses. That last answer leads me to the next question about like what did the Reengagement Center do that was different from like the traditional high school that you transitioned from? And so oh, go ahead.
Oh, I feel like other schools, they kind of just like throw you to the wolves. They're like, okay, well, this is the schedule that you have. Boom, you can take it or leave it. Like they don't ask you like, oh, are you comfortable with this? Are you comfortable with this type of crowd? Or like if you're scared to like raise your hand, like they just think like you can learn like everybody else. Like no, like some people learn different ways. Some people learn how to do things and explain things different ways. Like some people use blocks for math, other people don't use blocks for math. Like they have to be able to understand that, and like they don't. That's why I can't stand public schools. I mean, not saying that I'm not in a public school, but like Bada is definitely way better. Like they take their time to sit there and explain it to you. Even if you don't get it that way, they'll be like, okay, well, this isn't working. We're gonna try it another way, and they will sit there for like hours on end to make sure you get what you need so that you can get your diploma.
To touch on what China was talking about a little more for myself personally, I always had problems with moving at the pace of other people. So like I came from a charter school in Tabata, and as a charter school setting, they have like everything is set the way that it's supposed to be. Like the class is moving at this pace, regardless of if you can keep up or not. Whereas at Bada, if you know you can't keep up, then they'll work with you to put you in that place where you can learn that material, but then still maintain that path with the rest of the class so you're not too far behind.
Do you want to answer that question, Louis?
I don't think I can answer it. Like,
Okay.
like, I don't think I can find something to say. I mean, I can't really compare the Reengagement Center to, but I mean, can you say that Boston Adult Technical Academy is part of the Reengagement Center, or?
Okay, so that's totally fine. So we're going to move to the next question, and that would be, what advice would you give to teachers and administrators in the field working to reengage students who have left school?
Wait, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yes. No, no problem. So what advice would you give to teachers and administrators working to re-engage students who have left school?
The best advice that I think I could give is if you want to motivate students to go back into school and try to, put their life in the right path, is try to relate to them on a more personal level, which is like we've all talked about when we came here, is that there was someone here who connected with us on a personal level, who we understood like more in depth with, even though they were complete strangers to us at first. It's like if we have similar connections and they can understand where we're coming from and like why things aren't as easy for us as it was for them, then you can connect with students more and be able to inspire them to want to be better.
Okay, anyone else want to take a stab at that question, or would you like to move on to the next one?
All right, so okay, so I guess I'm speaking for like the both of us, because at the end of the day, there's not really much advice that we can give the people at Reengagement Center, just because
They understand us already. Like they get our problems.
they're not judging us. They're not like, oh well, you did this, this, and that. We can't help you. No, they understand. Like they take the time to sit down, speak to you, ask you what happened, why'd you drop out of school, what's going on in your life, and then they accommodate us accordingly. Like, okay, she doesn't do too well with this, so let's approach her differently. Let's see what school fits her for this. Like I have social anxiety, for an example. So being in a public school with a lot of people definitely is a no-go. Like I'll just stop going to school altogether. But in this case, Bada, there's not too many kids. So it's not like, there's not too many adults. So it's not like everyone's like crowding around me, or like I feel like I can't have my own space to breathe. So that's just, I feel like Bada is the best place for me to be, just because there's not a lot of people.
Anyone want to add anything else? No?
I'm just over here probably, I guess, just talk about mental health, I guess, or find a way to see how students are feeling mentally too. I know that when I came here, I could talk about a lot of my issues and stuff like that. But I didn't talk about my mental health issues that much. And probably there could be resources for mental health assistance to students, because that's probably one of the main reasons why students drop out of school, because we start to develop mental health issues because of experiences that we all go through growing up, and normally we don't have anybody to talk to. And I mean, I really do appreciate having the re-engagement center here, because they helped me get into a school where I was able to do good, where I was able to do good in. But I think for one thing that can improve is probably just providing mental health assistance for our students who need it, and that goes to the whole Boston public school system, because it's just not the re-engagement center that needs to do that. The whole entire BPS system needs to do that. But, yeah.
All right, thank you for all those great answers. We just have one more quick question, and then we're going to take some questions from the audience. And so, very quickly, what are your ideal plans once you earn your diploma?
My ideal plans after I earn my diploma is a couple things. Either I want to pursue a field of graphic design, so I can design video games or something like that, or I'm gonna follow suit with my family and join the police force and help keep people safe and try to paint a better life for police in recent in more modern day times, because you would expect people who are supposed to protect you, whereas the police get a lot of negative light, and not all of them are like that. So I kind of want to change that image of that.
For me, well, I like to do arts, so anything that's involved with the arts, I always say that to people. But I write music, I make art. But the main thing that I want to do is I want to be in politics. And coming to the Reengagement Center, when I came here first, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to the military because that was what I was thinking straight up. I was like, I'm gonna go to the military. But they talked to me and then they helped me find a school. They helped me find a school, and so yeah, now I'm made up my mind. I'm definitely want to get into politics and make a change. Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Yes, I can. So basically, the question was, what are the plans? What are your plans once you earn your diploma?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, I love dealing with kids, so it'd be like I want to be a kindergarten teacher, or if that doesn't work out, then I would want to be a nursing assistant. Okay.
Oh, when I get my diploma, first thing I'm gonna do, honestly, I'm gonna rub that bad boy in my parents' face, just because they told me that I wasn't gonna get my diploma because of the issues that I'm dealing with. But when I do get my diploma, I want to be a professional female detailer in like the car industry. I'm going to be really good at that. And if I don't get that on dogs, I'm going to be a behavioral analysis unit. I'm going to be able to read somebody from the top to the bottom like that. You ain't going to be able to lie to me. No. No, it's not happening.
All right. So thank you guys for sharing that. So now we're going to kick off the question and answer portion of the webinar. So if you haven't already done so, please take a moment to submit your questions via the chat function.
Chat function? What?
Oh, that's for us. Okay, that's
People,
for yeah.
don't worry about that. We're going to pose questions soon.
Okay.
So you are all really wonderful examples of why BADA can be successful, and we're getting a lot of questions from the audience. And one of the first questions we received is if you could give, any of you, a specific example of a resource that you received sort of beyond relationships that helped you succeed throughout your journey.
Hold on, can I be the first one to answer that? I'm going to be the first one to answer that. One thing that I haven't had in my experience of going to school is the teachers actually asking us for our phone numbers so that they can be like, well, if you don't show up to school, I'm going to text you to see why you didn't come to school. And if you're late, let me know, like text me. Like they'll literally call us and be like, hey, are you coming to school? When are you coming to school? If you're not, like, why aren't you coming to school? Like they make an effort to get you in school as much as possible just to help you succeed.
I just want to, I know you're going to say something, but I want to add on to what she said and just say that I think at BADA, it's possible for our teachers to call us and to catch up on us.
Lewis, you froze. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again, please?
Like,
Yeah. We're just looking for another great example of a specific resource you've gotten since going to BADA that has helped you succeed.
like I did them calling us thing. What do you think helped them? What helped you?
Help me?
Yeah.
Like go to school?
Yeah.
Well, that kind of helped me with the teachers calling and texting us, but also like I have that support system at home where my family pushes me, so it's like the teachers support me and my family does too.
Sorry, we're gonna call an audible. One of the computers went down, so we're gonna have you each slide the computer when you talk.
Okay. We're gonna do that then.
All right,
Gang.
You want to go, Louis?
Yeah, Louis, finish what you were saying.
I forgot
other
what I
way.
was saying.
Another question.
I was gonna say basically that at BADA, we are like our teachers are able to like call us and keep up on us because they don't have one teacher and 30 students in the classroom. And I don't know if there's any Boston Public Schools administrators in here, but we need to fix that. Like there's too many teachers have too many students that they have to catch up on, and sometimes they don't have the time to be calling all the students who do not show up to their classes. So we have like at least 2 teachers in a classroom with 20 students. So I don't know.
Thank you, Louis. We have one more question for the young people, and then we're going to move to our presentation. Thank you so much. Last question.
So hearing that you have a lot of support from BADA and the Reengagement Center for your education, how do you plan to navigate the workforce if there are not similar levels of support? Have you thought about that?
Oh, we were on mute? Oh, for sure. I don't know. I mean, like, at the end, well, I'm already working at Shield System Car Wash in Brighton, and it's literally like a minimum of maybe 5 employees, including me. So in that way, I kind of lucked out because, you know, I already like detailing as it is, so it's not really a reason for me to go out and move and search for a different job. But that's just me. I don't know about them.
I think even after we graduate, I feel like the relationships that we have built in the school with the teachers, if we ever are having any trouble, I feel like we can still call them up and ask them for any advice on how we should navigate our lives.
Exactly.
We're already planning out our lives right now, like in our school, and then after we leave school, where our teachers like want us to have a plan after we leave. And they always encourage us to visit and to just let them know how everything's going. So I'm pretty sure the relationships we build in our school are.
Hold on, I'm just gonna add on to Louis real quick when he says, "See, look at you, what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't touch." I'm just gonna add on to Louis what he said about the still being connected with the teachers. I feel like if we're still having contact with them, at the end of the day, we can just be like, we can just call them just to say like, this is how I'm feeling today. Like I need somebody to talk to rather than talking to someone in your household, because not everybody's comfortable in their household. Like not everybody likes the people in their household. So you can't really like, be like, hey auntie, oh blah blah blah.
If we have the mental health
right.
help for students.
Okay. Thank you so much for your responses. We also just want to say first thank you to the audience for submitting your questions, but also a huge thank you to all the youth for their honesty and their candor during the panel discussion. And you guys had great answers, and we also wish you a lot of luck in your future endeavors, of course. You all did a great job, so thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. We will now pass it over to Andrew Moore, who is the Director for Youth and Young Adult Connections at the National League of Cities, who will provide us with the foundational information about the youth re-engagement landscape.
Andy, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. If you could just unmute yourself.
Thanks for the reminder. Here we go. So great to follow the young people, and I'm going to proceed to maybe put something of a frame around the great input they provided from one of the nation's longest standing re-engagement centers. So the need to provide more structured assistance to young people who have left school for whatever reason, and to get them back to a high school credential first to help propel them forward toward post-secondary and credentials that have value in the labor market, proceeds from the observation that we have nearly 5 million young people in the US who are out of school and out of work, and somewhere between a third to half of those lack a high school diploma. So we have a huge population out there that stand in need of re-engagement services. And what we've begun to see over the past decade is partnerships developing in cities around the US to adopt re-engagement as a youth development approach to connect out-of-school young adults with caring adults and education options and an ability to move forward. This graphic depicts the 5 basic functions of a re-engagement center or system in a community: outreach to the pool of young people who have left school, assessment of psychosocial needs and educational status, referral to a best fit education option, support to re-enroll, to get through the often bureaucratic process of re-enrolling in school, as the young people there had to re-enroll in BADA, and support to stay enrolled so that issues large and small don't detract from the young person's ability to keep going. So I think I'm supposed to have control of the slides, but it's not reacting. Wow. We just skipped to another portion of the and all of this re-engagement work, establishing a central portal like the Re-engagement Center in Boston. It can be physical, it can be virtual, as cities such as Denver and Dubuque have experimented with to great success. Having that central portal depends on establishing firm ties throughout an ecosystem of supports and services that young people are likely to need, as the young people were testifying for us. So that ranges from the physical and mental health, behavioral health supports, to opportunities to get waged employment and further training, entry into alternative schools, paths to post-secondary credentials, and so on. So that's the complex or ecosystem of services for which re-engagement centers serve as a central portal. Still having trouble with the slide control here.
Andy, we're trying to advance the slide for you, okay?
Thank you. I think what it's important for folks to understand is that these re-engagement centers have been springing up around the country. We now have about 20 sites identified, 20 local sites. Boston, again, was one of the earliest, and now we have 2 statewide networks documented in both Washington State and Colorado. There's lots of reasons to learn from the experience of the existing 20 sites, and as you can tell from looking at a map, there's lots of opportunity for development of more structured re-engagement approaches across the country, so that there's a much more densely populated map. Every year we conduct a census at the National League of Cities of the scale of re-engagement operations going on across the country. So, for instance, for the 2016-17 school year, we found that this network had contacted some 40,000 young people and put almost 17,000 of them back into school. And then we, as I mentioned, we try to follow whether the young people are staying in school. The support to stay enrolled is one of the basic functions of a re-engagement center. And so we're following this so-called persistence rate, or what we sometimes call the stick rate. And out of the 17,000 who are placed back in school, nearly 12,000 made their way through that school year. So we're pleased to see what a nearly 70% so-called stick rate. I may need help here with the advancement. And just to close it out, because I think there's an opportunity to hear a little bit more from the folks who set up and run the Boston Reengagement Center. Anyone interested in reengagement is welcome to visit our webpage that we maintain, nlc.org/reengagement, to join our quarterly peer learning calls. Next one will be coming up early in the new year, to visit our resource hub that's available online, to participate in an upcoming meeting taking place in the Bay Area in late May of 2019, I should say. And then a couple of years ago, a large group of almost 30 people from around the network, the Reengagement Network, came together to contribute chapters and really valuable provider and policy level, local policy level information in book form. So that's available for reading as a resource for folks who want to learn more about reengagement as well. But given the limited remaining time available, I want to cede any of my time to my colleagues from Boston to hear more from them.
Hello, everyone. My name is Manny Allen. You'll hear from me. Also, my colleagues Kathy Hamilton and Annika Van Eaton, and we're going to present to you sort of the Boston Reengagement Center. I'll talk to you directly about our interaction with the kids, and Kathy will give you a little bit of our history, and Annika will definitely run you through some important data and some of the practices some of the lessons learned that we have from working with students. But I just kind of want to start off by saying I've been doing this work for about 12 years now. The Reengagement Center has been basically been here for about 10 years. And in that time, we have actually numbers are higher than this now, but we've reached out to well over 14,000 students. We had in-depth conversations with over 7,000. And then we have re-enrolled back into the Boston Public Schools over 3,000. That doesn't include GED and other programs. And we graduated over 1,000. So just kind of want to give you a scope of the work moving forward. And just make sure that I can advance my slides. Yeah, good. So just kind of wanted you to get a sort of a picture of our team. This is some of our team. So I should say that the Reengagement Center is a partnership between the Boston Private Industry Council and the Boston Public Schools. Annika is co-led. Myself and Kathy, who you'll hear from, is supported by Annika Van Eaton in terms of data and administrating our database and amongst other things. If you look, this is the team. I'm in the middle. On the right-hand side, you'll see Jelani and Angie. So they're the dropout re-engagement specialists that you heard some of our young people talk about. And then on the other side, we have Bobby and Zeta. So Bobby is a half-time employee. He works partly with high school dropouts, but then also with Opportunity Youth. These are students who have gotten their diplomas or GEDs and they're still disconnected, and they help to sort of reconnect them, and also college stopouts, right? Because once we help these students get their diplomas, we want to make sure that they keep moving towards the workforce. So I'll leave it there. Maybe in slides. Beautiful. So I'm gonna run you through sort of our whole process from beginning to end. It starts with outreach. Every year we get a list of all the students who dropped out of the Boston Public Schools. These students, we do a mass mailing. Then we do an automated phone call followed by live phone calls, all in an effort to set up an intake, a meeting with these students to basically discuss their education and sort of their past. And if I didn't say this, I should probably stop by saying during our intake, a couple of things happen. For me, I was a former high school dropout. I dropped out of school when I was 17. I was out for 2 years. I went back at 19, and then I graduated at 21. My guidance counselor told me that it was important, that I was intelligent, and that I was basically a college student. I decided to believe him and I went to college. So I earned my degree in computer information systems and recently earned my MBA. So I say this to say we all come from a point, whether it's myself, you heard some of the students earlier reference that, it seems like staff here have been through some things. So we always reference the places where we struggle, the places where we were insecure and how we overcame them. I think it's the key to connecting with youth, and we make sure that we incorporate that in each and every interaction with young people. Sorry, just trying to advance the slide. Could I have some help with that, please? And while we're doing that, I'll start talking about our intake process. Our intake process, there's 4 pieces to it. We'll get to that slide in a second, but we get into sort of a motivational piece where we sit down with students and we talk about why they left school. We give them an opportunity to sort of tell them what happened, sort of their story. Lots of students don't get a chance to really talk about what happened to them in terms of their education, and then we and then we sort of go over their transcripts, right? That's the other part. So a lot of students that dropped out, they don't know graduation requirements and they don't know where they stand. So we do that. We talk about exactly where they're at. We pull their information. For us, we have, and as part of graduation requirements, there are 3 state tests that we have for math, science, and English. And we talk about those things. So, and we show them exactly where they stand in terms of graduation. That's the second piece. So then they can make a decision on what options are available. And that's the third thing. We help to talk about their options towards graduation. And there's many different pathways. One thing specific is really helping to make a decision between what is a GED or a high set and what's the difference between that and diploma, so they can really, really make a decision on what's best for them. We only make recommendations. And then we actually help them with the actual enrollment process, producing the paperwork to actually make them active students, and then we refer them to an alternative school. When we look at this next thing, enrollment is a pretty interesting thing. In terms of students getting enrolled in Boston Public Schools, there are 3 places where they physically can go. These places are largely designed for adults, and adults have a hard time producing some of the paperwork that they ask. So a large part of our work on what we are is we're basically a welcome center, or a welcome center specifically for dropouts. We help to walk them through that process and help to deal with the extra issues, and also make it the paperwork process easier for them to get into school. Next slide, please. For the sake of time, I'll move forward and just go to after we help get them placed, we'll talk about case management. When we place students in school, uh, when we help to get them in school, we case manage them for a year, which means we follow up with the school. And that can look a lot of different ways. We can check in with the guidance counselors, we can check in with the administrators, we run workshops on the importance of attendance. We check in with them after, it's students build up a lot of motivation, they get into school, but then what actually happens while they're there is an important piece, because sometimes they lose motivation or forget why they decided to go back to school in the first place, and we help to be a support and remind them of that. And also, if they drop out again, or they have a challenge with the school, we're still there to kind of help make a better placement. So that is kind of a basic overview of the Reengagement Center's basic process. I'll end by saying the big piece with the Reengagement Center is culture. A lot of our culture, we kind of look at it as like kind of a college atmosphere. In college, no one really interacts with you unless you're loud, or you're offending someone. And that's the piece. When you treat young people as adults, they respond that way. So we, again, our whole piece is to help them transition to adulthood, and we start the process and the culture of that here. So with that, I'll pass it on to Kathy.
Hi there, everybody. Can you hear me? It's Kathy Hamilton, Youth Transitions Director, and I'm going to see if I can get this technology to work. Yeah, so far so good. This is great. So in Boston, there's kind of an evolution of the Reengagement Center that involves a task force. We had a coalition that's been around since 2004, whose mission was to lower the dropout rate, eliminate the dropout rate, and see what happens when we start to bring those out of school youth back to school. We started in 2004, and the context then to bring us back was people in Boston and probably nationally, except maybe in a few cities, weren't really talking about the dropout crisis or the dropout rate very much. In Massachusetts, that test, Manny talked about those 3 tests, the MCAS, the state had just kind of implemented this high stakes graduation test to ensure the quality of the high school diplomas we had. And everybody thought, oh my God, this is going to increase the dropout rate. And so the discussion about the dropout rate was whether implementing this high stakes test, which was driven by the employer community, was going to drive young people out of school. And the answer was no, it didn't. The dropout rate stayed the same. Not really looking at was that a lot of kids or not. So when we got together in Boston in 2004, we kind of looked at that question, because also measurement back then wasn't what it is today. The 4-year graduation rate was not required by the federal government the way it is today, or by the state government. But people knew that was coming. But so we conducted research over a couple of years to try to figure out exactly how many young people were dropping out, what was the graduation rate, and what did everybody think of that? So we interviewed a lot of young people, conducted a lot of focus groups, interviewed teachers, hundreds of teachers, service providers, folks working in the correction system, just looked at it from all angles. And we put this together in monthly meetings. Every time we got a new kind of report or sub-report, we'd chew on it. And this was to build consensus, because in that context, some people thought we really needed to boost early education and care because prevention's the most effective thing you could do. Other people thought we should be reaching out to young people who are involved in the system because their need was most emergent. So how do you get people on the same page? So once we did all that research, we put it together in a book called Too Big to Be Seen, which kind of was our primer. It explained what the numbers were. We figured out that 2 out of every 3 that entered freshman year were graduating, 2,000 a year were dropping out, which is a big number. That's the size of a large school, but it was kind of masked by, a single digit 8 or 9% dropout rate annually. It doesn't feel so scary until you look at the numbers. So one of the great things that this booklet did was it created a set of recommendations that brought us all on the same page. And we use these to this day as our kind of 10 commandments, so to speak. Just about everything we do flows from these. And the cool thing is it ranges from better data collection methods coming out of our frustration of what we ran into looking for early data, and then some interventions, early interventions, and this big one here, outreach and referral for dropouts, as well as things that would go along with it, like increasing the number and variety of alternatives, getting traditional high schools to have a better school climate, increasing coordination among agencies, and I think our young people touched on the need for that earlier in the call, and then figuring out a way to pay for it all. So we at the PIC thought it would be kind of cool because we were the convener of this. Coalition to jumpstart the action. Now that we had the plan, the idea was to get people wanting to take recommendations that were within their sphere of influence and maybe start implementing them. So we had some grant money, and we're like a broker as an agency. We do a lot of youth employment, connecting young people with jobs. So, reaching out to young people and connecting them, we thought we could probably handle this outreach to dropouts piece. So we got a little grant money and hired Manny and another gentleman named Marvin Moore, both former dropouts, and they were just, as you heard, so mission driven that it really captured people's imagination. And it kind of gave birth to the second phase. The first wave of energy was the blue wave that you see here, was building consensus around research. Then we started doing stuff. So the re-engagement, and people really, this was our action research project. So we shared the numbers and the stories with our task force, which was still meeting monthly, and people were really interested and intrigued. The district also took some leadership by conducting a segmentation study to find out the profiles of youth who would drop out of school. And one of the things they found was that a lot of seniors were dropping out because they were a few credits shy of graduation. So the district started building this really big online credit recovery program that had a CQI piece built into it, really impressive. And people were really intrigued by that. So I think people really watched those two things over the years and started to get excited about them. And so much so that we were able to take things to a state level. If you look at the green curve, and we went from having our kind of our 50 to 75 person coalition of public-private agencies in Boston that were developing a consensus about what needed to be done, to kind of a broader group of 200 to 300 stakeholders around the state that were developing that same consensus. And we got a dropout commission created at the state level that developed a lot of more refined recommendations, but basically they paralleled our 6 recommendations. So you had people going at the state and local level in the same direction, which was really something to watch at the time and be part of. And I think 3 slides in, we lose our ability to advance our own slides. Could I get some help? And so I think re-engagement was both born of this movement, but also helped propel this movement, because there was a big lesson from re-engagement that really surprised people, and that was that dropouts want to come back to school. I think when we started the project, people kind of thought that it wouldn't work because dropouts wouldn't want to come back, or if they did, we wouldn't have anything for them. And I seem to be missing a slide here, which is okay. We'll make that work. Go back a couple, I apologize. This is the slide. And this shows you year by year how many youth we reached out to and engaged that came to the center, expressed interest, told their stories. And that's the dark blue lines. You see 141 in 2006, climbing all the way to 884 in 2010. And then the numbers that we actually re-enrolled in a school, or most likely alternative school, and that's the lighter blue, 208. So when people saw these numbers, they were like, wow, these young people want to go back to school. Particularly when Manny and Marvin, who had been through the experience themselves, explained it, curated it, brought in youth to tell their stories like the ones you heard earlier. So I think what that meant was people couldn't give up on these young people because they realized they didn't give up on themselves. And I think that really kind of drove a lot of the energy in the movement then. And within the district, right around 2009, you see the numbers go up. The district was so intrigued by this that it decided to open up a center to house this initiative, which had been PIC-led in partnership. So ever since then, it's been a school district, private industry council partnership. And like, that's kind of cool. It's a lot of work, but very cool. So, I'll kind of move along because I want to have plenty of time for Annika. But over those years since we started working with the school district and our coalition and the Reengagement Center, we've seen dropout rates decrease steadily, and the number is cut in half to the point where I think we started out at about 2,000 a year, and again my slide is stuck. And now we're down to 660 a year, so that's more than half. And beyond that, I've been asked to talk a little bit about, okay, if we wanted to do a project like this And you don't need a coalition to do it in your district. I think the need and interest and partnerships that grow up around re-engagement in different cities and communities depend on what the problem looks like in that community and what the capacities are of the different partners around the table. So it doesn't need to be done the way it was done in Boston, but that's just kind of how it evolved here and why. But I do think some general capacities that help, and I have a slide that says that, but even if we can't get to it, I can just kind of tell you what they are. I think for a school district, first and foremost, they have to have a tolerance for exposure of gray areas and policy contradictions, because when you start bringing young people back who were not well served by the district, things emerge that maybe don't look so good for the school district. So you have to be kind of big and brave and ready for those courageous conversations. If you're partnering with the school district, or if you are the school district partnering with a CBO, I think there has to be a relationship of trust. It often helps that if you've done partnership before around a similar issue or a different one. The PIC, we're a workforce board, so we've partnered with the school district for years on youth employment, and we had an MOU to share data about, getting information on students so that we could help them get summer jobs. So we've been doing that for like 20 years with them. I think for all, data capacity and a commitment to use data to learn, and again, fuel courageous conversations. And then in some cases, it helps to have a connection to a collective impact project. It's not on here, but you definitely need a powerful champion at the city or school district level that's really willing to kind of take this on, because it's nothing to do lightly. You are going to discover a lot of needs and a lot of your system dysfunctions, but it's really a worthwhile project. Probably it takes some planning from the beginning so that you know that you do have some places to send young people once you connect with them. Like in Boston at the time, I didn't mention it, but we already did have a portfolio of alternative options. Everyone always thought it could be bigger and more varied, but at least it was something to start with. So I'm going to end here and turn it over to Annika, but hopefully we've given you an idea of the history and context of the evolution of the Reengagement Center here in Boston.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it. My name is Annika Van Eaton. I am a senior research analyst here at the Boston PIC. And as Manny mentioned, I manage the database that the staff uses to re-enroll students. And I also work in close partnership with the rec staff to analyze our student data, which I'm going to go through shortly. Thank you. So if you could go back one, though, that would be awesome. Thank you. All right, so we have a really great close partnership with the Boston Public Schools and a very robust data sharing agreement that gives us access to student enrollment records, ages, demographics, the school support services that they are enrolled in, and their transcripts. And we use this information both operationally for supporting students in re-enrolling and getting a new school assignment, and then also strategically in partnership with the Boston Public Schools to see an image and an understanding of the students who are off track, who are visiting the Reengagement Center. And so I'm going to give you a snapshot of a little bit of what we have been looking at recently with the Boston Public Schools and with the rec team. This is the students who have come into the rec during one specific cohort year. It was from April through just the beginning of the fall, and we took a snapshot of their transcript information, so looking at their ages and the number of credits that they had accumulated. This Parthenon category is probably a term of art that's very specific to Boston, and is one of those things that tracks back to, we had an external research group come to Boston over 10 years ago. It was the Parthenon group, now part of Ernst & Young, and they did a very thorough research project looking at students and disaggregating students by their age and by how close they were to graduating high school. And those are categories that we have continued to use within the school system in Boston. Basically, close is within 2 years of graduating, far is more than 2 years, and old is 18 or over, young is 17 or younger. And so we split up our students by these categories. And next slide, please. Thank you. And we see that 70% are far from graduation. 56% of this cohort of students are 18 or older. 44% are between 15 and 17 years old. And so that's the type of information that Boston Public Schools can consider when thinking about program design. So if you have a number of students who are 18 or older and also undercredited, that will be a different learning environment from younger students who have achieved several credits. Next slide, please. Okay, awesome. And then the next thing that I'm about to talk about is that we also looked at the number of those required statewide exams that folks had taken, the MCAS that Kathy and Manny have referenced. Thank you. And so splitting up our young and far, our old and close, our old and far by the number of subjects they've attempted. So if you've attempted 3, significantly closer to graduation than 1, 2, or none. And then, next slide, please. From that, we see that 41% of the FAR students have taken 3+ MCAS. 31% of students aged 15 to 17 have taken the 3+ MCAS. And this I put up just because I think the main point here, since this is a little bit in the weeds of our Boston student data, but the main point is that we're able to look at the groups of students and realize that, okay, we have 41% of students who are far in the sense that they are undercredited, but they've sat for all of the required state exams. And so again, that's a different education, curriculum design, etc., than the just under 60% who haven't taken any of these subject tests and then also need to take some credits. And we've seen that of these students who are a little bit younger, a full third of them have taken a lot of the tests that they'll need to take in order to graduate, which is promising and a really good asset for them as they figure out which schools that they want to go to next. And then lastly, we look at the students who came in with an IEP, individualized learning plan, or who need English language learner support. And so 51% of the students within this cohort we examined have neither enrolled in either of these supports. 8% have both an IEP with Boston Public Schools and this English language learner score, which indicates the level of ESOL tests or ESOL classes that they'll want to be enrolled in. 21% have solely the IEP, or 20% have solely the English language learner support needs. And so again, as we're thinking about school program design, where certain supports should be placed within the district, this is highlighting that half of our off-track population who are coming to the rec need either or both IEP or English language learner supports. And so this is an opportunity for the school district to think carefully about which schools that they put those supports in to ensure that they are best serving the students who are coming from the rec. So these are some of our recent analyses that we've done. We look at the data a lot, both to track progress within the rec and understand how we're doing with students, and then also more broadly in the aggregate so that we can inform school and program design. And I am happy to answer any questions along with Manny and Kathy, and we've appreciated the opportunity to talk to everyone today. Thank you. Turn it back over to America's Promise, folks.
Great. Thank you so much to Manny, Kathy, and Annika. We really appreciate your perspective from the city level. We do have a few questions. I want to say at the front end that we are over time and we probably will not have time for all the questions. So for those of you who have posed questions, We do have your contact information through the webinar software, and we will work with the folks in Boston at National League of Cities to get you answers, and we will be in touch with you via email for questions we did not get to on this webinar. So one question, probably for someone at Boston Reengagement Center or Boston PIC, you mentioned that there's follow-on activities once a young person is placed in a school after coming through the Reengagement Center. Could you talk a little bit more about what those supports are after placement?
Yeah, sure. So it can look a lot of different ways. For our alternative programs, a lot of them already have additional supports for these students, but all schools don't support students in all the same ways. So we really customize our approach according to the schools. So to give a specific example about that, one school we may go and do a series of workshops for the students who are still struggling or who still need to be connected. Sometimes we work through the school administrators. Like, so for instance, for the guidance counselors, we'll go to first of all, we go to each school with a list of all the students that we referred, and we understand who we understand that we enrolled there, and we check to see if they're still there. Sometimes we work, and then sometimes the guidance counselor will tell us the students who are struggling, and then we may do something customized for them, or we may just have another conversation with them. Sometimes we even help to put them in another school because it's not working. So, to answer the question generally, it looks different according to we customize it for each school.
Thanks, Manny. We have another question for Andy.
Hey, Andy. We really appreciate your perspective from the National League of Cities, and a couple of folks wanted to know if you could talk more about how you work with school districts.
Yeah, school districts are, this is Andy joining, and again, thanks for the opportunity this afternoon. School districts are an essential partner in almost every systematic re-engagement effort around the country. Sometimes they host a re-engagement center themselves. Sometimes they're the ones, supporting a network of alternative schools to which school students are being referred. Sometimes they're in a partnership arrangement with the workforce board, as in Boston. So the the need and desire for more emphasis on re-engagement flows from the observation that most districts on their own have not previously mobilized sufficient capacity to support all the young people who have left school. School districts are understandably preoccupied with the students who are still in the school building. But with leadership from inside the district to say we're part of a community effort to make sure that as many students as possible can reach the high school diploma level, and if not beyond, then schools can become a partner in one of many different ways.
Thank you so much, Andy. We did just get a really good question for the folks in Boston, and people are wondering if you have a type of screening that you do when students are interested in the Reengagement Center. And for example, do you ever turn students away or request that they come back at a different time?
Sorry, I guess I'll answer that. So I guess the first part of that question was, do we have a screening process? No, we don't have a screening process. I think it's dangerous to have a screening process. The way I look at the Reengagement Center is a place, even if we don't have the capacity to help a person. First of all, a lot of our students get shifted around from office to office, from place to place. So I like to kind of end that piece by, at the very least, getting them to the place they need to be, and then really kind of listening and hearing them out. If we can help them, then we will. If we don't have the capacity, often what happens is a large group of students who have a particular category will come and we can say, hey, we've seen 10 students who are looking for a specific thing, and then we will sort of relay that back to the school system. And then I think the second piece was, do we ever, what was the second part of that question?
Okay, thank you so much, Manny, for that response. So this is all that we have time for today because we have run out of time. But we just wanted to thank all of the presenters once again for a great presentation, and also just thank the youth for being very honest with us and being super open. We hope that you enjoyed today's webinar and learned more about youth re-engagement. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.